Hello, welcome to Friday I'm in Bed.
Podcast for midlife women living their best life, but in bed by 10.
This week on Friday I'm in Bed, we're starting with Coachella and all the moments everyone's been talking about. From Justin Bieber embracing his inner child with that lo-fi performance to Sabrina Carpenter being called out for cultural insensitivity, we're unpacking the headlines and asking the important question, should over 40 still be going to festivals?
Then we're talking about the return of TFI Friday back on our screens tonight. Will it be as chaotic as it used to be, or has it been neatly tidied up for 2026? We're chatting lad and ladette culture and asking, what would you actually bring back from the 90s? So grab a cuppa and let's get into it. How are you doing?
Good. I'm awake. I don't know if you are.
No.
Tell me why you're tired.
Well, I went to a gig last night on a Tuesday night and it did finish early because it finished at 10 o'clock. But with, travel and everything, I got to bed at 1 o'clock. And that's quite, well, on a Tuesday night, I struggle a bit with that. I'm all right at the weekend, but a Tuesday night, ooh. What about you?
No, 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock's late. Whatever time whatever day of the week it is. I went to a gig at the weekend. I know you were very proud of me for going to a gig. So we went to see The Damned. They did like a 50th anniversary show or something at Wembley Arena. Mostly for my husband, as I know like, well, I thought I knew one Damn song. Turned out I knew three. But so it was good. I paid before we went in there. I decided to buy VIP lounge tickets so that we could have somewhere nice to sit and private toilets, and I didn't have to sit in the queue. So that was nice. Worth every penny, I would say.
We had a really quiet weekend and didn't have a gig because obviously we have, there's a week in June where I've got 4 gigs in a week and a half. Yeah. But that is what June and July look like for me. And August, in fact, I've got like driving up to Manchester to see The Cure and then driving back the next morning and going to The Prodigy in the afternoon. And then having a week.
Years. I think it's been like real years since I've been to like a proper gig. I have memories of in 2006 going to see Guns N' Roses with a friend of mine at Wembley Arena. And we were drinking wine and they gave it to us in pint glasses. So that was like not going to be a good start. We got very drunk. At one point we fell down 2 rows of seats and then made some new friends. But and I have memories of trying to get home that night, and I was staying at her house in London and we were like getting on buses and she was falling asleep and I was like, I don't know where we're going. And my memory of Wembley is that it was really kind of an industrial estate.
It used to be.
Yeah, but so this is the first time I've been back and it's amazing. We stayed in like an Airbnb, which was like 5 minutes walk from the arena, and it was just had this beautiful social space and like little parks and cafes that sold me sourdough bread with flowers on. It was. I was like, I don't remember this at all. And then I had that I'm really old moment where you suddenly go, my God, that was 20 years ago and none of these buildings were even here.
I have a story similar, and I can talk about this gleefully because I don't drink anymore, that I went to see Pixies at Alexandra Palace and it was a really, really hot day. And it's a really hot venue as well. And we were drinking wine from the little bottles. You know, when you go to the bar and you just get a little bottle. But instead of drinking water, because that's what you should do when you're hot, every time we were like, gosh, we're so hot, somebody would buy us another little bottle of wine. And I didn't realise how drunk I was until I got out of Ali Pali and there's all these steps. I fell over, cut open all my knee. But I was just so drunk, I just went back to my friend's house and I got up the next morning, went to work, and like I hadn't dressed my knee. I should have gone to hospital. And then probably about 10 years later, I had to have an operation where they removed a stone from inside my knee and they couldn't work out how this stone got there. And it was a Pixies gig. So yeah, drink water, everybody.
Yes. Oh, that's good advice in general. Yeah, I mean, I still drink, but I
when you're hot,
certainly don't deliberately drink enough to fall down 2 rows of seats and make some new friends anymore. No, I think there's a balance.
Anyway, this is all really relevant because the first topic today is music festivals. So I think we should get into it.
Crack on.
I want to talk about Coachella Festival, which happened last weekend. The reason I love music, I love festivals, but so many like pop culture moments come out of Coachella, and I want to chat about some of them today. There's actually a few, so we've got a lot to get through. We've got Justin Bieber, who headlined and he embraced his inner child. So we're going to talk a lot about that. But there's also Sabrina Carpenter. So she is almost like cancelled woman of the week, which seems to be a theme for young women in the public eye. So I'm going to talk about her. And also a debate I've seen raging all week. It's only Wednesday. So for the last two days is over at festivals, because Justin Trudeau was seen having a burger with Katy Perry, and everyone's like, oh my God, he's so old, he shouldn't be there. So I've got a lot to say about that as a 53-year-old woman that does still go to festivals. So let's start with Justin. So Justin Bieber, for anybody that's listening that's like, who, like what, why? So Justin Bieber.
I know who he is.
Well done. Huge child star in the late 2000s. 2008 in particular, like absolutely massive child star. He had what the press would describe as a bit of a breakdown in the 2010s. I'm going to say the press because obviously I don't know if he had a breakdown because he's not my friend. So in like 2000, I haven't written the year down. I think it's about 2013, 2014. He was arrested for drunk driving, and he seemed to kind of go downhill. Has seemed very, very unhappy and lost for many, many, many years. Now, we can look back, and there were times like when he went and got an award in again, I haven't got the year. Jenny McCarthy was presenting, and she kissed him and was kind of totally inappropriate with him, and he was a child, and he was like, whoa, get off me. So he was kind of sexualized, if you like, a bit like Britney, which I would like to talk about as well. But also we now know that P. Diddy took him under his wing and invited him back to his parties, bought him a car, and did all, and was his like mentor. And obviously we now know about P. Diddy. So it's like, oh, what happened? Anyway, fast forward to last weekend, he came on stage, he headlined. He was the most expensive headliner of the history of Coachella. He was paid $10 million for
10 million, I saw, yeah.
Yeah. And he rocked up in a hoodie. He sat at a laptop and projected, probably the wrong word, the laptop to the big screen and sang along to his old hits. Now, partly that was because he has sold off the rights to all his music. I mean, yeah, he doesn't need the money, but, like he's shedding his old self. I think he got reported 200 million for selling off the rights to his music, which means he can't sing it. So this kind of YouTube bit kind of covered that. But
okay, so he can't sing his own songs now, but they paid him 10 million to headline.
Well, I know, and I think, how are you going to do a tour? There is something about access to his music. I don't know.
Right. Okay.
But this is his allegedly was his get around for it. But the cultural moment was twofold. One was the lo-fi-ness of it, i.e. he just rocked up with a hoodie, played YouTube, sang to backing track of his own song. But the big thing was he sang to his younger self. He sang with him, he listened to him, he embraced him. It was a moment of an adult man accepting, respecting, watching his child self, and Gen Z got it. I don't know whether the older people got it, but that's why I want to talk about it, because it's such a cultural moment. And as a parent, I was just like, it makes me want to well up, because it's like, wow, all this stuff's happened to you, and like, So what I'd really love to start is the whole kind of concept of child star. So it's like, how do you feel about child stars?
Well, I think the thing, it's not necessarily but teenagers in general do that, don't they? I mean,
change their identity.
Shed their childhood. It's not abnormal for, teenagers to have like a rebellious period when they go out and do things that they weren't supposed to do, which I won't go into any of them just in case my mum doesn't know about them yet. But So it's not unusual, but when it's a child star, they haven't got that kind of space to go through that in like semi-private, or to
No.
meet people and be able to just trust them without being hyper aware, and they're managed and curated. So when they do go through that, they're kind of kept in this little box. And when they do go through that, it kind of explodes as like a major meltdown as soon as they're old enough to actually, not have someone looking after them, rather than going through it like quietly in a small way at like 14, 15, like the rest of us do. So I tend to think that those meltdowns that we see aren't necessarily meltdowns. They're kind of the thing that we all do, but these guys are doing it more in the public eye and maybe a little bit later and with a lot more money.
Miley Cyrus, definitely, when she was Hannah Montana, when she shed Hannah Montana, she shaved her hair off and took her clothes off and rode a wrecking ball. And everyone was like, that's Hannah Montana. She's a child star. What is she doing? But actually she was just rebelling. I think shedding was quite a good word, just like, that isn't me. That was a character.
Literally shedding clothes and hair a lot. Like, yeah. So I think it must be an incredibly difficult thing to like grow up in the public eye like that. And, how do you go through that transition? You kind of don't get that opportunity to go through that transition in like a normal way without everyone making a big fuss about it. I mean, I think even some of the stars of Harry Potter have all been through it as well, haven't they? They've all had their meltdowns as they like grew up, and they're addicted to drugs, and maybe some of us just didn't have enough money to be addicted to drugs when we were teenagers. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
there's a lot of money there,
you're in a very different situation. I mean, I don't know what the answer is. It's not obviously good for the kids to be put in that position, but I mean, it's been happening for as long as there have been stars, hasn't it?
I wonder if it's different now, if things have improved, because there's things like, for example, this isn't children specific, definitely not going to talk about sex, but like intimacy coaches, like on set when couples have to have sex, in films and stuff, and they're young, particularly when they're young, they have intimacy coaches, and I don't know if they're called coaches, but people. So I feel like maybe things have got better, but it makes me, I think, it's the kind of making money off your kids thing. We definitely know that happened with Britney. And it's like, I wonder if in today's cancel culture, would it be called out more? Do you think? Because like we seem to be very quick at cancelling everybody.
It depends if you know it's happening. You must be like, if you've got a parent or guardian that's like making money off you or supposed to be in charge of your money and your career, you've got to have at that age someone who's responsible for you. And it's really difficult. Everyone at that point has a kind of vested interest in it that isn't just your best interests. You would hope that, if it's your child, that you would always have their best interests at heart. But when we're starting to talk like millions and millions and millions of dollars, there's always going to be a kind of tension there. I mean, I guess.
I know that reminds me.
Depending on parents that, let their kids do that in the first place.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Beckham. I can't even remember when we talked about Brooklyn Beckham. One of the things he has said was he felt like he was part of the brand and he had to be wheeled out and he had to perform, and he obviously doesn't want to do that anymore. So I think it potentially is still happening. I mean, obviously, who knows what's happening there. But what about the inner child thing? I think I've never even heard of the concept of inner child until probably a few years ago, when people in my life had therapy and talked about their inner, their child. And I think it made me I had a conversation off the back of it with some friends around what would you tell your younger self? Because it's almost like he was talking to his younger self, because he was singing to his younger self. If you had to go back and talk to your, I don't know, early teen self, would you even talk to her? Would you like go, oh?
The inner child concept is very therapy speak, isn't it? And I think one of the things it's designed to do is to remind people that they were children. Because if you've got traumatic instances in your past, it's easy to look back on it with your adult's brain.
Yes.
And think you should have behaved in a certain way without realizing that you were, to show someone like this is someone who is your age when this happened. Like, would you expect them to behave like an adult? No, because they're a child. And like reminding you that you're a child. So I feel like that's kind of what in actual therapy, what the inner child thing is for. But it's one of those things that's now like transitioned into normal speech and become like, well, My inner child would like to have ice cream and brownies for dinner, please.
Really? I haven't seen that.
So yeah, there's a little bit of in people without kind of serious trauma just going, yes, my inner child needs comforting today. But I don't know what I would tell my younger self. I don't know. I don't think I did too bad. Like, don't worry about your GCSEs. No, I don't. No, I think she did okay. My inner child. Maybe don't burst into tears and cry so much about trying to pick a secondary school because it really doesn't matter.
As a parent of a daughter who is 2.5 weeks away, oh my God, from her first GCSE, it's really hard as a parent because you want them to work hard and you want them to try hard, obviously, and you do want them to get into college, the next, or A levels, whatever is next. You want them to, but you also know that it doesn't matter. But if you tell them it doesn't matter, they won't do any work at all.
Yeah.
And
then it will matter.
And then it will matter. Or you put all the pressure on them that it really, really matters. And then they're so stressed. I know some kids, my daughter's friends, who are so stressed because they're getting so much pressure on by their parents that they have to get A+ for everything. And, you're sitting there thinking, yeah, but you don't, because you just got to get to the next stage. And the next stage, they just want you to have 5 GCSEs or something. So you don't. So it's kind of, So I think that's a good one for going, saying to your teenage self, like, you'll be all right.
Yeah. I think I would say to my teenage self that national record of achievement is never, ever, ever going to leave your house once you leave school.
And
did you have one of those? Did you have one of those, or you were too old for those? Or
I didn't have, but I do have. My mum cleared her attic, and I did find my GCSE and O level, because I got 1 O level, so I took one early, certificate, which is that was been in a loft for 100 years. Anyway, we need to move on.
They gave us this burgundy fake leather folder with gold national record of achievement on the front, and we had to write statements and all sorts of stuff for the front, like it was going to be the most important record we ever had in our lives, and then just disappeared within a year. That was it.
So I really want to talk about Sabrina. So Sabrina Carpenter had a big performance, as in...
Was she like the anti-Justin Bieber?
From a production perspective, yeah. And actually there was quite a lot of chat online around how if Sabrina had turned up in a hoodie and a laptop, she would have been annihilated, and why do women have to overperform and men don't have to? But I actually disagreed with that. Justin was totally separate and different. Like another male performer would have probably done a big production. So anyway, but what happened with Sabrina was she was just about to play. I feel like she was at a piano, but then I'm like, was she at a piano? Anyway, that might just be my weird memory brain. There was a noise in the audience and Sabrina thought it was a yodel, and she was like, what is that? What is that noise? Who is yodeling? And it put her off because she was about to start something, and somebody shouted out from the crowd, it's our culture. And she replied, yodeling is your culture? That's weird, I think is allegedly what she said. I don't like it. It's creepy is actually what she said. And then carried on playing. And there's been a backlash because, how rude and insensitive that was. And she has apologized and said, I haven't said what it was. Sorry, it wasn't yodeling. Help if I said that. It was an Arabic celebrationary sound that you make called a zagruta. I don't know if that's how you say it. So it wasn't a yodel.
Mm-hmm.
She has obviously since realised what happened. I don't know how much she was realising really what was going on. I don't know how much she actually heard, and has apologised. But the internet is trying to cancel her, basically.
This gives me full eye roll.
I know.
I think it's really obvious there was no intent there. She heard a noise she'd not heard before, kind of put her off a bit, and said she didn't like it. Do you know what I mean? Someone said that's my culture, and she just reacted in the minute. I kind of this is a full eye roll effort at cancelling, because it's not her fault she doesn't know Arabic. Side note, I've just randomly decided to do Arabic on Duolingo. It's really hard.
But my question was going to be, have we just got so sensitive? I was thinking about this morning in the shower. When I went to festivals, people threw empty bottles of urine at people. on
I was just
stage.
going to say, you're lucky they were empty because they weren't empty when I went.
This is it. And I feel like, I mean, I'm not saying that's acceptable behaviour. I'm not saying that's the way to be. But I feel like, if I'm going to be honest, back to you, the eye roll, I'm like, really? Like, and actually, we talked a couple of weeks ago about Chapel Roan being cancelled, I'm saying in inverted commas. And the footballer has yesterday apologised and said he never meant it was her. He always knew it was the security man. Oopsie. You know, meanwhile, she's been annihilated on in the press for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So it's kind of like, whoa, have we got too sensitive? That is my question. Not we. We as a world.
I am going to say yes and no. So I don't think it's too sensitive necessarily to say, you know, that we should be aware of other people's cultures and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's the cancel side of things because someone didn't know.
Yeah.
That's the side of things where you just go, oh, really? Like, we can't know everything. I mean, apart from me, obviously, we can't know everything. And I think sometimes we waste an awful lot of time focusing on the minutiae when that's a good word, when kind of the state of the world at the moment, you know, could we start at the top?
I couldn't agree
before
more.
we start worrying about the tiny, tiny, tiny little bits.
But
So-
young people seem to be like, obviously, I live with 2 Gen Zs, and, you know, they talk about it. I mean, obviously, I think it's obviously repeated over and over on TikTok. And obviously, once you see it once or twice, then the algorithm gives you so much of it. And they do get very like, but this shouldn't have happened, and she is bad. And I have to say, well, is she bad though? Because she didn't understand, as you said, but also she's performing potentially one of the biggest like nights of her life. There's lots of noise, lots of sound. She's got to think about her words, her dance routine, but also every single word she says so that she doesn't get cancelled. I mean, obviously that doesn't mean she can stand up there and be racist and abusive and whatever. But it, like, we've got to the stage where, as you said, people are being cancelled for things, or trying to be cancelled for things that in the scheme of things isn't the most important thing.
Yeah. And I think that's the issue. It's not necessarily a bad thing for her to then be like called up and made aware of it, that like, you know, but to be like, she's bad for the way she reacted to it when she had no idea what she was reacting to is just weird.
And I am going to call it girls cancellation of the week or something. I feel like I might see if I wonder if there's going to be one every week, because there seems to be a pattern. You know, we talked about this, young women are only allowed 2 years of success, and you know, she's
Which
up
women
there.
are we going to cancel for no good reason this week?
Woo, yeah, I feel, yeah, exactly. Anyway, last thing to talk about with Coachella is old people, you know, those people over 40. Oh, at music festivals, how dare they? Justin Trudeau and Katy Perry.
We don't belong there, Kate. We should be at home knitting.
Knitting, exactly.
Or
Justin
crocheting.
Trudeau,
Someone's got to make the outfit.
Yeah, there's a lot of crochet at Coachella. You're dead right. So Justin Trudeau and Katy Perry are an item for anybody that doesn't know. And they were seen eating a burger and drinking beer at the festival, which sparked lots of conversation, even down to he banned single-use plastic in Canada, and look at him, he's eating from single-use plastic at a festival. It's like, oh, come on, you're reaching. Honestly, I read too much popular culture stuff online, as you can tell. But yeah, it sparked the debate of over 40s at festivals. And yeah, how do we feel about this as midlife women? Are we allowed to go out to a festival?
Go wherever the hell I mean, I'm not entirely convinced that I wanted to go to festivals that much when I was like 18. So it's not something that I do regularly now. And if I'm going to one, like a small one, like Wild Woodland, I don't know, anyway, in a couple of weeks. Yeah, we're taking the camper van. We're going to do it comfortably. I'm not using portaloos and that stuff. Yeah, when I was a teenager, I went to Glastonbury. I fell over in the mud. I was miserable and I was cold. Did not enjoy. That was it. I went to Phoenix Festival when that existed, and I went to Reading Festival. So, you know, I went through a bit of going to festivals, but I never hugely enjoyed them that much. But I've got friends that do still go to them now because they were festival people. And I feel like I could still enjoy one now, probably more. now that I know that I can go and have a nap whenever I feel like it and I'm not forced to trudge around in mud.
Well, yeah. I mean, I love a festival. I went to Transmit last year, and in fact, that is quite a young festival. To be fair, I flew up for the day. I didn't stay. Well, you can't stay at Transmit. They're 3 separate day festivals. I flew up in the morning, went to the festival, flew back the next morning at the crack of dawn, which I think is quite rock and roll for a 52-year-old woman.
Yeah.
And the year before I went to Download, which it did rain. There was mud up to my knees, literally. I think the thing I find hard now is my back. So you can't, it's obviously, if it's sunny, my back's fine because you can kind of lie on the ground, if you know what I mean. But if it's raining or muddy, you can't sit down. So you're standing for huge periods of time and you can't take a chair in because in case you throw it at somebody, do you know what I mean? Or attack somebody with it.
Maybe that's why over 40 shouldn't be at festivals, because we can be trusted not to throw chairs at people.
I'm not throwing a chair at anyone. I'm
therefore, they're obviously not the place for us.
I am guarding it with my goddamn life, this chair, because it's like, but I had it even at the gig last night because I stand at the front on the barrier, like I'm at the front of gigs. You have to stand kind of and look up. Obviously, I'm doing actions now, which you can't see when you're listening to this podcast, but you know, you have to kind of look up and above people. So you're curving your spine and then you're like, and then before Transmit, when it was Fontaines DC, who were the second from last on the bill, which was a very, very young crowd. They're amazing. And then it was Biffy Clyro, who I went for, who was an older crowd. There was, I don't know, half an hour gap. I did some yoga. I literally, downward dog. I had my son had to sort of hide my modesty because I was wearing a little dress. But, you know, like I was bending because I was like, oh, and the youngsters were looking at me like, what the is she doing? And I'm like, mate, I've been coming to festivals since 1986. I'm going to do some yoga and I get on with it.
Yeah, see, if I'm going to stand up for a long time, I need a stick.
Yes.
Because I can't stand for a long time with my back. And also, yeah, chairs are important to me. I find it incredibly difficult to sit on the floor because I don't bend in the right places because of my broken back. So maybe, but then, you know, you can have disabled 20-year-olds as well. It's not just doing that because I'm how old am I? 46 to check. I've already started adding a year on because it's in May, so I just forget sometimes. But yeah, so I mean, what is the argument that 40-year-olds don't belong at festivals then?
I think it's linked to the fact that Coachella is a very young festival and it's a very fashionable, fashion-led. It's full of influencers. You know, lots of Love Island stars from the UK have flown over there. It's very young and glamorous and beautiful. What's interesting, though, is I feel like the over 40s potentially can afford it because obviously it costs a fortune to go to Coachella. So there's actually money. I think Reading Festival has become that because it's become the GCSE results festival. So like 50-year-olds, 40-year-olds going is deemed as weird to them, but they are all still there. They go. I was talking about going to Reading this year. I'm now not going. But yeah, there's that feeling that you shouldn't be there. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just ageism as well, isn't it? We're just...
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely is. I mean, just because, I mean, essentially it's a load of gigs, isn't it? Just because there's a younger crowd there. I mean, I get the idea that maybe, you know, it could be creepy. It's like, don't go to the... I've looked at things before and you go, oh, I'd love to go to that, you know, even if it's just like dinosaur day, like at a park or something. And you go, oh, I'm 46 and I haven't
got a child to take.
It's not meant for me. So, you know, I get the idea that sometimes something can just not be meant for you, but I don't get the idea that festivals are not meant for, sod that. I am pro anybody over 40 who isn't me going to festivals. If they want to sleep in tents on the floor, fine, do your thing, whatever.
I know, but also if you're going to a festival and there's freaking Guns N' Roses, say Download this year's Guns N' Roses and Linkin Park and Limp Bizkit, they're all over 40.
Yeah. That's my band.
But I think the thing is Coachella it's Justin and Sabrina. There were other people there. Reading, Charlie XCX, Fontaines DC. It's younger performers, I suppose.
Yeah.
So they're just gatekeeping their music.
Liking any new music once you're over 40 as well.
Well, again, to be fair, there's a lot of people my age who don't listen to new music, and there is so much amazing music out there. And I was like, well, I'd like to go to Reading because I'd like to go and watch Fontaines DC. But it's like young people sort of then look at me like, that music's not for you. And I'm like, don't talk like, what a load of rubbish.
See, I'm still at that thing where I'm convinced that I'm secretly a 25-year-old just stuffed into a 46-year-old body. I'm like, no one can tell.
Yeah, but I have this because
They can totally tell.
as you know, I go to a lot of live music, and I go to like rock gigs, and I would go to say Limp Bizkit, and I would be at the front, and I would be in the mosh pit. Like I'm around, I'm not like at the back. And I think, I do sometimes think, is there going to be a point where I'm looked at like, what are you doing? But the response I've always had is real respect, and they've loved the fact that I'm there with my son. They have been really, like looked after me like I'm 90. But what's interesting is guys, there are men at gigs in their 50s, in their 60s, they're there and nobody bats an eyelid. But I think it seems a bit, I think it is gendered. I think people think that she's a bit old. As you said, maybe I'm supposed to just be knitting at home.
Or you could have gone to see The Damned, because I found the mosh pit very interesting at that, because obviously it's the Damned 50th anniversary tour. All of the Damned are like in their 70s, and I was easily one of the youngest people there. And you know, my husband then on the younger side of the people there, and the mosh pit was like guys in their 50s and 60s, you know, crowd surfing, which
absolutely,
I personally found quite hilarious. And I was like, I couldn't help but wonder, do they go to gigs a lot, or is this a special one and they've come back to relive their youth and do some crowd surfing? Because it was
Damned are still really popular, aren't they? I was never a fan, I'm afraid. Sorry to upset your husband. I'm not a fan of Damned, but yeah, but I do know Six Music Dads is what they're called, are spending a huge amount of money. And when you go to gigs, it's full of Six Music Dads. They're the people keeping it music and grassroots venues alive.
To pay the absurd amount that festival tickets cost these days.
Right.
So we've fixed that. Yeah. 40-year-olds go to whatever festivals you like.
Well, we know that, don't we? Just do what you like. I mean, we do anyway, don't we? I'm not going to be told.
Just do what you like.
Well, I'm not going to be told what to do by a 16-year-old. Like, I've got enough of that going on in my house. I'm not having that across my entire life. Thank you very much.
You're going to rename the podcast. Oh, just do what you like.
Just do what you like.
Okay, so very appropriately, considering the name of the podcast, we're going to talk about TFI Friday, which I was reliably informed by the internet stands for Thank For It's Friday.
Right, okay. Because we were so good like that in the 90s. We never
didn't use F words. We don't even know what else it could stand for. So it's coming back today, I guess, if you're listening to this when it comes out, or it came back last Friday if you're listening to it another time. So they announced that they've acquired 6 episodes of TFI Friday Unplugged, which was going out on YouTube, Virgin Radio's YouTube channel, because Chris Evans has got a show on Virgin Radio, I believe. I don't really listen to him. So the first episode's going out 11 p.m. this Friday. The original was at 6 p.m. on Fridays. Chris Evans is hosting it. He was 29, I think, when he hosted the original. He's now 60. So yes, Channel 4 is saying it's brought it home, back to its spiritual home. They've got, I have a list of guests: Sam Ryder, Freya Ghoshal, Jack Savaretti, Sindhu V, Gemma Arterton, good name, Peter Capaldi, and Kush Jumbo. Now, I know 3 or 4 of those people, I think. So it's been described as a filmed podcast style show. So they're kind of admitting that podcasts have maybe filled that gap that TFI Friday used to fill. So if anybody has no idea what TFI Friday was back in the day, because I do know that we do have some people that are young'uns that listen to this.
Oh, hello.
I know, right? Hi, Libby. So it ran on Channel 4 from 9th of February 1996 up until 2000. The last series wasn't presented by Chris Evans. They had guest presenters in, and it was kind of it was very zeitgeisty in the world of things like The Word and what's that other one?
Chaotic, I would say.
Yes, it was chaotic late 90s TV. It kind of epitomized that lad and ladette culture. It was quite a definitive TV show, and I can remember watching it every Friday. I think peak viewers, it was 2.2 million, which is a lot. I mean, I don't know, because TV doesn't get that many viewers these days, does it? But it was definitely...
Yeah, it was a lot, particularly because it was on at 6, 7 o'clock on a Friday when the people were going out, weren't they? So it was kind of people, and it was Channel 4 as well. So it wasn't like the BBC at 8 o'clock where it would have been, bigger.
So it was basically filmed in a bar And I think it held about 30 people, and like 350,000 people would apply for tickets. Getting in the bar at TFI Friday was like the thing. And then they would go down the stairs and they did this thing where the camera would like follow you, and then they would have a big band on. So they had bands like Blur, Oasis, Pulp, Björk, David Bowie, Spice Girls, anyone who was anyone played on TFI Friday. And they had loads of famous segments on it as well. I mean, this is one of the things about it coming back. I don't know what they're going to do, if they're just going to do it as a talk style show, but things like Freak or Unique, Fat Lookalikes, Ugly Bloke, can you imagine that being on now? No, that's like, and 6 p.m. meant they couldn't swear. Shaun Ryder was banned for years because
funnily enough, he swore.
Cannot control his tongue. But what I didn't realise was they have actually tried to bring it back a few times in the past. Apparently they brought it back as OFI Sunday. I don't know what the OFI was supposed to be. So that was quickly axed in 2005. In 2015, they had a one-off anniversary special, which was canned after one season. And then it's come back now again, another 10 years later. How do we think it's going to go? Did you watch the original?
Yeah, of course I did. Yeah, well, I mean, we all did, didn't we? I think obviously, I talk a lot about nostalgia on my feed on Instagram and stuff. And, we do all... There's a pattern, when times are good, we don't look back. And when times are shockingly bad, which I could say it is right now in the world, we look back. So we get all nostalgic to the good old days. And obviously to young people, particularly the 90s is like, my son's like, oh, I wish I was alive in the 90s. Like it was like this, the pinnacle. And I think also people of my age, our age, again, we think, oh, the 90s, it was before the internet really kicked off. And it was like, we were so much freer and it was great and music was great. And so there's this kind of nostalgic vibe going on in our minds. But I mean, I've made videos sharing some of the things that were said, weighing Jerry Halliwell and then weighing Victoria Beckham and comparing their weights after they'd had babies. And like, it was very of the time. It was very sexist. It was very, life was very different then. And in a way, that kind of stuff is kind of what made it, because it was edgy. And it was chaotic and you didn't know what was going to happen. And did you see that? And oh my God, did you see her on there? And it was all like that. Whereas now we look back to that and go, that was dreadful. But at the time it was massive. But that's kind of what made it in my eyes. So it's kind of what's it going to be like now? Because they can't do Freak or Unique to discuss somebody that, whatever. I can't even really remember. Was it something sort of disability or something?
I think that was the one where they used to do like weird things if they had like a weird skill, like wiggling their eyeballs or something.
But yeah,
and that was that one. Yeah,
you wouldn't weigh somebody, and you wouldn't, so you wouldn't do that now. And I think that's
that goes back to like kind of the cancel culture thing, doesn't it? Like you can't. There's that risk now, like you just go like a tiny little bit too far and then that's it. It will be all over for you. So how do you manage a show like that? I mean, we can see that the nostalgia thing is obviously massive. So apparently 97% of viewers are interested in watching content released more than 10 years ago. That seems like a random statistic, but it's on my notes. But Malcolm in the Middle's been revived, Scrubs as well. Friends has obviously had quite a big revival as well. So there is a lot of that kind of 90s television coming back. But reviving it as a format, can you revive it as a format without bringing back the values and still have that kind of vibe?
If they don't, I mean, they won't bring back the outrageous, it was kind of outrageous at the time, but that's why we liked it, like it was like, oh my God, as I said, without that, is it just, as you said, like a talk show? And actually, if it's Chris Evans chatting to Lewis Capaldi, did you say, or Peter Capaldi? Lewis Capaldi.
Peter.
Oh, Peter Capaldi. Talking to him and then, let's now wing over to the stage and, I don't know, Reef playing, because, it's 1999. They're still around. Is it really that different from Graham Norton?
No. But then I love Graham Norton.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, like, is he going to bring back that? So one of the things I wanted to talk about from it is that kind of mid-90s was a huge part of lad culture as well. So there was lad culture, and then we got ladette culture, which was that mid-90s feminism, the girly show I used to love. Sarah Cox said that she hated the word ladette because it had lad in it, like we were trying to like copy the boys. I feel like there was a kind of element of that to ladette culture, that proving that we weren't delicate little flowers and drinking the pints, that kind of thing. So there was that element of doing what the boys do in it. So Loaded magazine, FHM, Britannia thing, all around the mid-90s, and lad culture was a really big thing of that, which could be. It was kind of presented as very fun and like, yay, boys will be boys. But it could be very nasty around its edges. And then women got themselves involved in that. Denise Van Outen, Zoe Ball, Sarah Cox.
Yeah.
Still in the public eye now, a lot of them. So at the time, it was very much framed as part of like that girl power feminism kind of thing. I mean, I know that I thought I kind of identified a bit with ladette culture, I guess. Was it something that you're a little bit older than me, so maybe you were too sensible and grown up for that nonsense?
Not really, but also I wasn't into Britpop. So obviously it was intrinsically linked to Britpop, the football, Euro 96. I mean, I made a reel the other day about 96. It was a kind of key year. I was already married by then in my doomed first marriage. I was very much an American grunge girl. So Britpop, I was not into Oasis. I was not into Blur. I was not into any of it. So it slightly passed me by. I do remember though, like, wow, woman has gone out. I remember Zoe Ball, it was she has talked about this, hasn't she, around she went out all weekend and the press, she was on the front page of all the tabloids because she had like a bottle of JD in her hands or something, and she'd just come home from a weekend partying. And I remember thinking, and I don't remember it as girl power. I remember it as, well, I mean, Courtney Love was doing way worse. If you know what I mean. As in, women are doing... It's almost like there was this shock factor coming from the tabloids that, women are drinking alcohol in public.
I think, though, that was part of where what felt at the time like a bit of a feminist edge came in, though, was that shock factor. Because, when boys do it, it's all right. They can sleep around and binge drink and stuff, it's fine. When women do it, they end up pictures of them in the gutter on the Daily Mail front page going, it's disgusting, look how women behave. So there was, you felt like there was a bit of rebellion behind it, that you were like pushing back against the things that you were supposed to do. In retrospect, you just kind of go, oh, just because boys are stupid, does that mean we have to be fucking stupid as well? Excuse my language. But at the time, it did feel like that kind of little bit of a pushback to doing those things. You see it, there's always who are the rebellious girls now, do we think? Because you had like the Gibson girls in the 1890s, and then the flappers, teeny boppers, and then I don't know, like the hippies, I guess, and ladettes. Has it got a name now?
Brat. It's Charlie XCX.
The Brat.
It's Brat.
Okay.
Obviously, Brat Summer is over officially because she set fire to it last year on stage. Brat Summer over, but it's messy. The messiness, smudged eyeliner, going out, taking drugs, partying all night, wearing what you like, literally, but as in, I'm not going to conform. I think it's the brat culture is now, I would say. Obviously, we've moved on from the word brat, but brat. I think what's interesting, though, is what you said. You said the word retrospectively. I think there's a lot of call for things to be cancelled because retrospectively, in retrospect, then it's not great. Like people, for example, things that spring to my mind straight away. James Bond, because young people, gens are like, that's a bit rapey, quote unquote. Where we just grew up with, he just went, you're my woman, and then took she didn't have a choice type of thing. I think what else was gone. Something else was in my mind, and it's gone. Oh, Friends. I know lots of talk about Friends, gay. They were were they homophobic? But then they had the first lesbian wedding ever on television, and Chandler's dad was trans. So in some ways they were forward thinking, but then some of it was very white cast. There's lots of So there's lots of people going, Friends,
Fat
bad,
jokes
Friends,
about
bad.
Monica, yeah, but it's yeah.
Fat Monica, fat outfit, and all that kind of stuff. And even I read in the paper, not in the paper, don't read the paper. Instagram, it's the paper, isn't it? On Instagram, I read calls for like Chris Moyles to be cancelled because of some of the stuff he said in the 90s. And actually, things like the countdown to Charlotte Church turning 16 because she'd be legal, and then the press picked up on that, and she's since talked about how that made her feel and how it was awful. But I think Chris Moyles really does kind of epitomise, I think, that is lad culture. But in retrospect, we go, my God, that's so awful. But when we were there at the time, it was really, really normal. But does that make it right?
Yeah, it's that thing where you feel like you should be able to maybe consume this kind of media, but looking at it through a modern lens. You should be able to do that, unless it's like, ridiculously, what was it? I think, if you watch something like Rising Damp, you feel like it meant well in the racism context. And whereas if maybe you watch something like, I don't know, It Ain't Half Hot Mum, you feel like maybe it didn't so much and it was just nasty. So I feel like there's kind of some media which isn't the way we would necessarily have done it now, but meant well.
Well,
and other stuff which was just unpleasant. But the question is, which bucket does the TFI Friday format fall into? Because I don't think it did mean well. I don't think it was trying to kind of even a playing field or draw attention to issues in any way. I think it was just self-indulgent, deliberate shock value. And do we want that back? Do we need it? Do we need it now? I mean, it feels like at the time it was a real response to mainstream media, which was all we had. Always being so curated and polished. But we have social media now. Anyone can put stuff out there. And I know over the last few years, that's then become a bit more curated and polished. And there's been a bit of a pushback on that. So does that mean we need TFI Friday back?
Yeah.
Or should we all just start posting pictures of our dinner on Instagram again?
And who's going to watch it anyway? Because if Gen Zs who are consuming a lot of the popular cultural stuff, if it's brought back in its original form, it won't be in its original form, but even slightly, they're going to be like, what is this? I mean, they can't even cope with Friends and think, sort of. So therefore, is it going to be aimed at us? I mean, I'm not watching television at 11 o'clock at night. So what is the point of putting it on television? You might as well leave
now, so you can watch it at 11 o'clock in the morning the next day.
I know, but then you might as well then leave it on as a podcast and leave it on
Who's
YouTube.
watching live telly?
No, I know, but then you might as well leave it on YouTube then. So it's kind of like the liveness, I don't think that's a word, was kind of part of it, wasn't it? Because what was going to happen? All the chaos
you
or
didn't
whatever.
know what was going to happen. Was it going to be? I mean, I don't know if this is going out live now or I actually didn't check that. But yeah, what's the point? I mean, no one who watched it originally wants to stay up and watch it at 11 o'clock on a Friday night, right? That's ridiculous. And the people that weren't there at the first time round don't really want to watch it now unless it's, so I imagine it's going to end up like loads of clips and everyone's going to watch the clips on social media and take them out of context and decide that they hate people. That'll work.
Oh, that's true. So
what? Go on. There you go first.
No, I was going to ask what you were about to say, I think.
What would you bring back from the 90s?
I have a list. I'm getting out my notebook. I can't seem to turn off my binging on my computer.
Yeah, right.
So ignore the binging if you can hear it. So I have a list. Have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things. I won't talk about them all, don't worry. Number 1, I would bring back landlines, and that being the only way we communicate. The landline phone. If it rings, you're busy, you don't pick it up. And even answer machine messages. Love all that. I'd bring that back.
Yeah, you want the answer machine messages that go, hello? Sorry, I'm not here at the moment. So that people start talking.
Bring that back. I would bring back Gwen Stefani because 2026 she's pro-life, conservative, religious, kind of, she's like a different person. So I'd bring back 90s Gwen Stefani, I decided. I'd bring back Reading Festival being alternative because now it's like a pop fest and I think it needed,
I saw L7 at Reading.
Amazing bands and it was alternative and now it's sort of just like everything else. I would bring back buying music and get rid of streaming music, but I'd make it affordable like it used to be. Whether it be like going to see a band and it costing £7 and there was no Ticketmaster. You just went and bought a ticket from a record shop. You bought a record from a record shop. I'd bring back free universities. And in fact, they gave you grants.
Yeah, I didn't get a grant.
I'd bring back the high street, get rid of internet shopping. And this is my final one. I'd bring back no judgment. Remember when you used to be able to eat a Pop-Tart and nobody judged you for it? Do you know what I mean? Now, and the reason I say this is last night we were at the station. We needed to get some tea to eat something before the gig. My son wanted a McDonald's. I had a Happy Meal. I sat eating a Happy Meal. And I thought, if I posted this online, I would get annihilated for eating a Happy Meal because it's McDonald's and it's unhealthy and it's high fat and it's this, that. That when you could just eat a Pop-Tart
a McDonald's
and nobody told you that you were going to die because of it and judge you and cancel you.
Yeah.
So I'd bring back that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I used to go. This is like the most old lady segment in the world. I remember when I used to go out on Friday night with a fiver and I'd buy a bottle of cheap ass wine and 10 silk cup.
Yeah, I remember. It was great. And of course you earned less, to be fair. Things were...
Yeah, I mean, I used to get paid like £2 an hour for some things, but
But I could still afford to buy records and go to gigs because they didn't cost £75 a ticket. They cost £8 a ticket. But the high street...
So now I might have spent the £75 anyway because I want to get the fancy lounge tickets so that I don't have to talk to people.
What would you bring back?
Well, I've been thinking recently a lot about magazines. God, I used to love a magazine, like Just 17 when I was not 17. I think we talked about that before. And there was a magazine in the mid to late 90s, which was a bit on the ladette side called Minx.
I don't remember that.
Minx magazine. I loved Minx magazine. Taught me how to make hot Mars bar vodka. Minx magazine. It's very good. So I would bring back magazines. I actually went into a shop the other day, and this is magazines before you literally bought a magazine and it was like 70% adverts as well, where every other page was just like fancy adverts. Ones when they actually had content in them. But I went to a shop the other day and thought, I might buy a magazine, that might be quite nice just to enjoy sitting on the sofa with a sack of magazines. It was £10.
Yeah, I did that. When I go on holiday, I think, I'm going to buy a magazine. And I buy like Grazia or Vogue or something, like a fashion-y magazine. And I think I bought Grazia and it was like £9 or something. And I was like, £9? It's really... And then there was nothing in it to read.
Yeah.
I loved magazines.
And no free flip-flops on the front. They used to give me free flip-flops every year.
I do miss magazines but I miss the affordability of magazines. Agreed. What else?
I was thinking... ties into TFI Friday, but that appointment TV thing I used to quite like. I mean, I can remember, when if it was on, you had to watch it.
Yeah.
You couldn't watch it on a 5-minute delay or press pause. You had to wait for the ad breaks to go and get a drink. You couldn't pause stuff. There was something kind of cool about it. I remember Wednesday nights when ER was on, I would have a bath and then I'd be like, oh my God, it's starting in a second. I can remember nearly falling down the stairs once trying to get down for the beginning of ER just because I needed to see like early noughties George Clooney.
Absolutely. But then you then all talked about it at school or college or work the next day because you all watched it. So those kind of cultural moments, we all were in it together, weren't we? And whether it's a song going to number one or what happened on EastEnders or whatever it was, TFI Friday, we all watched it and we all talked about it. Whereas now we all just consume it in so many different ways or don't even consume
and also you just like share it with your friend instantly and then you never mention it again rather than like talking about it. But I miss that. Like it was a proper cultural moment thing to have something happen on TV. I do miss that.
What else?
More specifically, I mean, I would bring back 90s Body Shop full stop, but definitely Fuzzy Peach because I was a Fuzzy Peach girl, and those little tiny bath pearls, Fuzzy Peach bath pearls. Yeah, give me those. But they used to do a lipstick in the 90s. Like it was like a multi-stilo cheeks, lips, everything. And it was called Rosewood, I think. And it was a gorgeous matte, very 90s lip colour. And I would definitely bring that back. I've always thought they were very stupid for not bringing that back.
I did a reel on cosmetics from the 80s because I'm more of an 80s Body Shop girl. Last Saturday, actually, and they'd had Japanese washing grains in there, the kiwi lip balm, and they had the amount of people that's like bring back 80s or 90s Body Shop. They had so many great iconic products, but I don't know. I mean, obviously they've just brought back Dewberry, haven't they? but I feel like they could bring back just whole products, not just a fragrance. It's, they used to have like Tiger Balm, a little pot of Tiger Balm that used to put on when you had a headache. They had blotting paper. I don't know if they had it in the 90s, blotting paper.
Yeah, I loved, blotting paper, yeah.
But,
I really think they kind of, didn't they go bust fairly recently as well for a bit? I don't know, they must have bought.
But Anita, what was her surname? Roderick. Yeah, sold it. Didn't they sell it to L'Oreal or Estee Lauder or whoever?
Which means
and then loads of stuff changed.
Yeah, which feels like very anti the Body Shop's ethos as well. Don't they test on animals, L'Oreal?
Yeah. But Body Shop, I think, I said the high street, just the high street in general. People don't shop. Well, I did actually read something, again, on the news, Instagram, that Gen Zs want the high street back and are actively shopping. So they are going to London or to the cities to buy in person. They want that, which I think is great. But I mean, my nearest shopping centre is Milton Keynes, and it actually has a lot of shops in Milton Keynes. But for young people, there's like nowhere to buy clothes. Like we had, whether it was 90s, it'd be Jane Norman or Topshop, we had we had so many clothes shops that you could go on a Saturday and buy your fashion and have your identity, whatever kind of look you were going for. Whereas now you go and they're either clothes for older people, i.e. from a cost perspective, so it might be Reiss or Whistles or, Hobbs, that's all there next. But then there's Primark and there's sort of like then there's H&M and Zara, but there's not a lot. We had so much choice on the high street.
Yeah, I did used to love a Saturday. I quite like online shopping on the basis that what I don't miss now is changing rooms. I feel like shop changing rooms have a whole different vibe once you're over like 17 and going in with your friends and trying all your clothes on, and that just drives me insane. But I do miss Selfridge, for instance, and that kind of thing. I've still got a skirt I had from the 90s, doesn't do up, obviously. But yeah, the high street, do you know what? Very specifically, I'd bring back Woolworths because we didn't need Amazon because we had Woolworths because they had everything in Woolworths.
Yeah, but I suppose, isn't that what Home Bargains is now?
I suppose so.
I do quite like Home Bargains, I have to say. Sorry.
I do like a B&M or Home Bargains. No, I have to say I do like them. That's that. I saw a thing once that was like, what, you're going to B&M. What do you need? And you go, I don't know. B&M will let me know.
Home Gardens.
So, yeah.
Home Gardens.
Maybe it's similar, but there's pick and mix isn't the same.
Yeah, I think life before the internet. And then that makes, again, is that just being old or, and that nostalgic thing. But even my son, he's 18, and he says one of the things, if I went back to the 90s, why I wish I was around was no phones. And it's so easy to go, all young people, they've got no attention spans. They're always on TikTok. They consume all their, everything online, how bad it is. But there are people, young people out there going, I wish I'd never had it. I wish it didn't exist.
I agree. I mean, I appreciate a lot of it. I wouldn't have the job or the life that I have now without it. I wouldn't have made some of the connections I've made. We'd never have met Kate.
No. This podcast wouldn't exist.
God, yeah, get rid of the internet. God. Yeah, we wouldn't have a podcast. There's all kinds of things that I really do appreciate about the internet. But the fact that it's become real life rather than a space that we escape to, I guess, it's a bit much.
Yeah, and I suppose when it first
came in, to leave me alone now.
When we had to dial in to the internet, which obviously took forever, and that noise as you tried to connect, but you had to do that so maybe the issue isn't the internet, the issue Wi-Fi or broadband or whatever it is, because we had to go. I'd get my laptop out, I'd plug in, and Facebook was around or whatever, but I'd have to then log on to Facebook and I'd have to go in, and then I'd shut the laptop, and then of course I'd disconnected from the internet.
Yeah, it wasn't there while you were watching telly. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree with that. It's that kind of fact that it's just constantly there. I mean, I literally did a survey the other day that was like, how many hours a week do you spend on the internet? And I was like, how many hours am I awake?
I know. Do you have an Apple Watch or a smartwatch? See, I bought one and within about 2 weeks, I was like, get rid of it. And I sold it. I was like, this is the worst thing ever because I don't need any more freaking alerts. Like my whole life is one big alert. And then my wrist was alerting me. And I was just like, please, like, just stop.
So on that note, everybody turn off the internet. Now you've done the important bit, which is listening to us. Turn off the internet. Go to bed.
Everybody that is listening to this, leave us a comment and tell us, what would you bring back from the 90s? What would you? Thank you for joining us for another roundup of midlife chat, hot takes, and occasional moaning. Well, quite a bit of moaning.
Make sure you hit subscribe so your podcast app gently nudges you every Friday, because honestly, who remembers anything without a reminder this day? And also, we like people liking us because we're very needy.
And if you fancy being extra lovely, leave us a rating or a review. It helps more brilliant women like you find us. Have a great weekend, everyone, and make sure you find time for yourself. You deserve it.